Well, good day to everyone. It is a joyous day because I have some wonderful news to report to everybody. As of yesterday, we were 100 members of the Crystalline movement, which is one for me, it's like Yahoo! It's exciting. And then today, we started off the first day of November with 101 members in the Crystalline movement. So it's definitely building, the energy is flowing. It's very, very, very exciting. You know, watching the conversations, the connection. This is what an international community is about. Connecting with one another, breaking down the borders, and are opening up and sharing ideas from different perspectives, from different cultures. So it's exciting to see and a lot of fun. One piece of information, if you didn't see the email that went out yesterday, we are now putting articles on the private members page on the website. So if you see the email that went out yesterday, it will have a link to the members page because there is a really interesting article that our dear brother Yap wrote and is up on the private members page, and we'll continue to do that, putting things up there, especially for the members of the Crystalline movement. So having said that, I'm going to turn it over to Yap and just once again say how grateful we are for all of you being part of the Crystalline movement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brother Gary. Yeah, it is wonderful to see how things are expanding, and they are not only expanding in numbers, it's also an expansion in energy. It's actually, in some ways, is even more important. The key point is to have people that are very dedicated, that are really working with it. And if you have 1,000 people, of which only 10 really are active, you still don't really create the powerful energy that I see developing increasingly within this group. And I'm really grateful for that. You may remember that I said, this is not an individual, this is the group, the collective, that is really setting things into motion. And each one of you is needed in order to create that field that we are continuously expanding. So talking about that, we will always start with a meditation to see where we are at now and feel the field to the best of our ability. So Gary, pay attention. I'm going to turn the computer around and I don't want the recording to stop. Let's see. Hello, hello. Yeah, is this good? Okay.
Yep, it's good. It's recording.
Still recording? Okay. Good. Okay, so let's start with the first what? Is it recording? Okay. It's recording.
Yeah, it's recording.
Jeannie was not sure. Okay. So let's start with a few deeper inhalations and exhalations to allow our systems to relax into the here and the now. Knowing that the here and the now is connected everywhere. It's your personal and our collective here and now. Because by making the connections we make, we create that community, that connection, that one field. So allow yourself to relax as much as you can so that it becomes easier for you to connect with your heart. Moving again even deeper than usually into let me be guided by my heart. So feel that connection and feel that every time you do this, you will expand a little bit more. There is no limit to growth unless you put that limit on it. So feel your heart and feel the connection that your heart has with your spiritual essence. And connect with that essence as deeply as you can by allowing it to come into your system, expanding from your heart through every part, every energy body, every cell, every aspect of you. Become again the light that you are. And learn not only to imagine it, but learn also to feel it. Feel that it has a quality that is different from the physical. And by bringing it into the physical, the two begin to merge into one functional system. In that way, you can truly express your uniqueness. This is why we are here. And feel your intention, your willingness to do everything you can to express your uniqueness into this world. That's why we need to collaborate, because we are all slightly different and we are all needed. Allow that feeling inside of you, in its fullness, that you are needed. And that beautiful light is also carrying, by definition, unconditional love. Connecting with your essence, with the white light, is connecting at the same time with unconditional love. And as always, start with feeling it for yourself, exactly as you are. Remind yourself that you don't need to change in order to unconditional love and accept yourself. Change is beautiful, it's part of growth, but should not be required to love yourself unconditionally. And be aware that your mind may object, but your heart doesn't. And from this place of love and light, make your connection with Mother Earth. Feel your love for her. Feel her love for you. She is the reason that you incarnated into this life, to help her on her journey, because we are co-creators. And feel for yourself from your heart your willingness to co-create to the most optimal level possible for you from your uniqueness. Feel also that through Mother Earth, we are all connected, not only with other human beings, but with all plants and animals as well. With every stone, with every rock, with the water, the air, the fire, and the earth. Now bring the awareness back to yourself. Feel your connections with your crystals, crystal skulls, whatever shape they may have. And feel that through this connection and working with them, you're continuously growing and expanding. Growing and expanding, allowing you to bring more of your essence out into this world, and specifically contributing to certain aspects of the mother that are really needed, the crystalline grid. Feel that expansion. And if you just start, set your intent that this is what you choose to do, to grow and expand through working with crystals, with pieces of Mother Earth to connect it deeper with her. And at the same time, expanding your abilities, qualities, so you can contribute even more. And feel how we together, as the members of the Crystalline movement, co-create a field that has its own unique qualities because it's co-created by each one of you. And feel how that field is expanding. Every week it becomes stronger, expands in frequencies, and contributes more and more to the process of balancing those grids and awakening potentials that could not be awakened before. And let's sit in this field, knowing that this field is a part of the total field, but has its own unique qualities, its own unique effects, its own unique contributions. Be aware that everything you do in the coming week will contribute to the field, helping it to expand even more so that we all benefit from it in the next week. Take again a deep breath. Slowly bring your awareness back to the place you're sitting. And when you feel ready, open your eyes again. Well, thank you all again for a beautiful meditation. And I'd like to thank many of you who are really very active in bringing up questions, sharing their experience. Is really beautiful. Very, very stimulated, and to be honest, a little bit, sometimes a bit overwhelming when I try to answer everything and react to everything. And I have to admit that I sometimes fail a little bit, but at least I try to go through the major topics, and also I will bring some of that into these Zoom meetings. So that's what I want to do also today. There are a couple of things that I promised that I want to bring in, and based on some questions, I like to also bring in something about the brain without going too much into details, because we got the workshops of a whole day, of days about the brain. Anyway, I like to go back to the basic principle that is also always hidden within the meditation, and that is that we are co-creators. That is such an important point to realize. Even though we don't know exactly what that means, this is part of our, you can say, exploration, discovery. Being co-creators was what we were, you can say, that's our assignment when Gaia invited souls to come to this earth, to become humans, as we ultimately became. So we are here to learn how to find the right ways to help Gaia in her evolution, Mother Earth in her evolution. And in the course, there is one image with all the different types of energy lines and grids and systems. And at the basis is the levels 1 to 5 of the crystalline grid, and on top is the term morphogenetic grid. The morphogenetic system holds the information of the total potential of this system. That's not a fixed system. I always thought it was fixed. Yeah? This is the amount of information and that's it. No, it's a dynamic system, but that's the one that holds the information. So ultimately, we are invited to become the caretakers of that system in order to bring in that information in the right moment, in the right time, that will allow Mother Earth to evolve into her potential. And in that process, our souls are experiencing the ability to be co-creators in a system that in and of itself is pretty challenging, because in order to be this co-creator, we needed to go down, down, down in frequency. We are now connected with the physical reality of this planetary system. So here we are You know, we are at the bottom of the barrel and are beginning to climb out, helping each other to understand who we really are, our potential, so that we can become the co-creators that we were supposed to be from the very beginning. But in order to do that, we needed to connect with all aspects of Mother Earth. And right now, that potential possibility is present. We are dealing with the physical reality. Now I say, you have said something like that before. Why do you bring this up again? Well, in the first place, because it's important. In the second place, I am right now studying as far as I can, because I'm quite limited in this kind of area still, the grids and what is the highest frequency of the grid. I can also say what's the lowest. Let's do the lowest first. The lowest are the bacteria, the viruses, and they resonate actually with our root chakra, the grounding. I've wrote it in some articles, and some of you may know, may remember. Some of you it's new. So each of the 12 levels of the morphogenetic system is related to a certain group of beings, plants, trees, animals. And when you go through that, higher doesn't mean better, it's just different frequencies, different complexities of systems. The ones that is the highest but one, level 11, that's us. And what is level 12? Mother Earth. And let this sink in for a moment. The highest frequency, the highest potential of the total system is Mother Earth. And every crystal is part of that. So it are the crystals, the stones, the rocks outside there that actually hold the potential of the highest vibration within this system. Well, this is a little bit of a toughie because we always put the human system on top of everything, right? Sorry, it's not the case. We are not on the top. We are co-creators, yes, but we are co-creators with a system that is on top, Mother Earth, with all her stones and her crystals. Which means that the potential of stones and crystals is to hold any energy that exists and is possible to exist on this system. Even when we are working with crystals and stones, we work only with a very, very tiny, small part of that. And that is where we need to start, because if we don't have a solid base, there is no way we will understand this beautiful planet that we have decided to incarnate into. No way. And it is not so surprising if you really think about it, that the planet, any planet actually in the whole universe, will always hold the potential of everything that lives on it. So that's also true for this Earth. So when we start to work with crystals, we begin at the basis in order to make sure that the foundation of the whole system is as optimal as possible. And in that process, we can use crystals to grow forever and ever and ever in frequencies. I find this very exciting. And that is why the crystalline movement is actually the starting point of a journey that is, it can go on forever for those who are interested in doing so. Some of you are totally okay, because that is part of your journey, to work with crystalline energies. Other people want to go also to the trees and to the devas and to the unicorns and the dragons and whatever you feel guided to do. I've learned myself that by doing them all, it means that you never become a specialist in something, you become a generalist. I'm a typical generalist. Ecologists are actually generalists, right? So I've always had it as a strong point and as my weak point, both, which is always the case, right? Anyway, so I bring this up because we have been talking about working with the different materials, and there are questions about that. So inherently built in every stone and crystal is the potential to go to higher and higher and higher and higher vibrations, to the level that is not even included in this in the workshop that is part of the Crystalline movement. Sorry, the online course that's part of the Crystalline movement. Yeah. So there will be a follow-up on that, but let's first work with this particular frequencies, because there's a lot to learn about the current ones before we even think about expanding on it. But realize there is more to expand in such a way that you actually go over the whole range of frequencies of these planetary systems, within which all living beings fit somewhere. So every being is, or group of beings is resonating with some of those frequencies of Mother Earth. Okay? That is the overall basic system. And we lay the foundation for everything to unfold by working with the Crystalline movement, working with the basic grids first, yeah? And beginning to lay the foundation where we can build on. So when people are asking about what is the best material, in a sense, and that is what I like to repeat over and over, always follow your heart. You can work with any material and go to higher and higher frequencies. The difference is that some materials, and those who have done part of the course or maybe the whole course, know that some materials have more frequency layers. So they have more frequencies that can help you on your personal journey of development in order to be a more optimal contributor to the co-creation. So that's why, you know, some people are, you can say, resonating stronger with certain materials. Ultimately, you can say the one with the most expanded frequency is quartz. Now, there is some discussion about what is quartz. Well, the word quartz itself, especially in the Dutch language, is already creating problems because everything is called quartz. So whether it is the quartz that is based on silicium dioxide, the clear quartz, the smoky quartz, citrine, amethyst, and rose quartz. And then we have all kinds of quartzes that actually are silicates. So they have far more other stuff in it, due to which it doesn't have the purity that quartz has. Now, why do I put so much emphasis on the quartz? Also because the quartz is actually the system that holds the frequencies that can go into the whole universe. In a sense, you can say most other materials hold quartz in it, but the purity of quartz gives something unique. And that is because the silicium dioxide, which is what quartz is structured in a very specific way. And some of you know it, but for those who don't know it, I'd like to at least show you the form. That is this form. You can say it is a pyramid with a triangle as a base. This form is basically the structure of silicium dioxide, and it repeats itself endless into these structures. Now, this one is one of the so-called platonic solids, and I'm not going into sacred geometry, but this one is basically connected to the universe, the infinite. It's the new world, infinite possibilities. And that's why this is so important. It holds all the potentials of some uniqueness in itself, in its structure. Now, silicates also have the tetrahedrons, as this is called, the tetrahedron, in it, but there's not in the same regularity. And it is something in the way that quartz is organizing these things that creates that very powerful energy. And yeah, there are actually two forms of quartz, and that is the one that is basically what they call alpha quartz, which is quartz that forms up to a certain temperature. And if I remember correct, something like 700 54 degrees centigrade makes that it changes into another quartz. Doesn't matter. It still has all this. The only thing that is different is that it belongs to a different group, because the basic structure of the standard quartz is this. And this form is this. Two of those tetrahedrons. And that brings us straight, I'm not going into details, into many other aspects of the universe, including light. So it is like using this is like opening the doors for the light of the universe. That is what quartz is doing. So it is for that reason that ultimately, for your personal development, you may want to go there. But always follow your heart. For certain things, if I want to do some good healing on myself, I don't use quartz. And that's because Jeannie taught me, and I always listen to her. So she taught me that I should work with fluorite. Fluorite is having only 12 layers. But if you bring them to higher vibrations, like as if you activate the first or the second or the third group, but you do that with fluorite, wow, it gives healing. Yeah. So it is playing. It may be that you need something totally different for that phase of your development. So don't let yourself, I mentioned this about the potential, but don't let yourself be fooled by, oh, but I have to work with quartz. No. Work with what you're guided with. Do that because your heart is telling you, not because what I am telling you. At the same time, I'm sharing you this information to help you to understand. And I will come about understanding and feeling in a minute, because that is also a very important topic. Yeah. So that was the questions about quartz that people asked. And so that is the answer. Yes, there are many, many other, what they call quartzes, but actually they are silicates. So they are silicium with a lot of additional other stuff and other atoms linked and connected with it. Yeah. And for whatever reason, the more you put into it, the less that uniqueness of quartz can be expressed. Yeah. So when there are too many inclusions, it doesn't work. Yeah, then you lose at a certain moment the ability to have all frequencies at the same time of the quartz. The other ones are influencing it. Doesn't matter with respect to your guidance. If you, again, I repeat it, if you're guided to work with a certain material, please do so. Because that is in that phase the most important thing for you. Yeah. There was a specific question on these guys. I put a small one, there's a bigger one there, but I don't want to turn things around. This is the Shiva lingam. So people know there is something special with Shiva lingam, so that's why the question came up, and some who did some workshops know the answer. Shiva lingam, although it has 12 layers, has the stone with the highest amount of crystalline life force that I have found. I'm not saying there are more because I have not studied everything, but this stone has a tremendous high level of life force. And that makes it unique. Shiva lingam. Sitting with this one and meditating with it, it gives you, and it pumps up for those who are open for it, it can pump up your life force. So Shiva lingam, there are also the black ones, and there is an endless discussion, which of the two is better? Isn't that very human? This is so human. Okay, guys, which one is better? Well, depends on where you're at, depends on how you feel in that moment. I must admit, sometimes I feel this better, sometimes I feel this better, because apparently I need this more or that more. Yeah. So I keep repeating, there is no rule other than the rules you made. Information that I give is not like a dictation. No, it gives you some background to play with, to see what's important for you and how you feel about it. If you don't resonate with anything that I'm saying, put it in the garbage can. Forget about it, because in that moment it's not for you. And I may be wrong. I can only share what I feel in this moment, and that's what I'm sharing with you, but I'm not ever claiming that I hold the truth. So don't give away your responsibility. I'm sounding very serious suddenly, right? Okay, so there's one other quartz, I will mention there's many other stuff, but I have one quartz here, and that is called blue quartz. Yeah, it's a little bit grayish bluish. Now, interestingly, this one is still like quartz. But if there is too much color in it, it can become a problem. So there are people asking and saying, well, it takes me more energy to activate, for example, rose quartz. And yes, rose quartz has not this crystalline structure in the same way. It's a little bit an amorph structure. And that makes it that you have to put in a little bit more effort to get it to the same place as when you have, let's say, pure quartz without inclusions. Yeah. So there are differences, and I know that for some people, especially when you have this very dark amethyst, for some people that feels also a little bit more difficult to activate it, unless you have an amethyst special feeling, then it becomes much easier. So it's all relevant. Yeah. So there are the things that I wanted to share with you about the different quartz crystals and stones. And before we go to questions, there are two things that I shortly want to bring in. One of them is the subject of organizations of crystals. That was brought up, and it has been brought up directly or indirectly a couple of times. It's also quite an interesting and not that easy subject. It comes again back to 2 points. A, follow your heart. If you have a certain setup that feels for you right, then that one is in that moment for you the most optimal setup. And the fact that it makes you feel good will mean that you are able to create a more powerful field. So that is a very important part. Secondly, there are people that are fighting with each other and say, no, that stone or that crystal needs to go a centimeter more to the right and to the left. And there is always a truth in that. Yeah. I know that Jeannie can sometimes put something in a slightly different thing, and I agree immediately. It feels better. Yeah. So there is something in the way you place it. And I've done quite some experiments over time, because if I do workshops and people put all those crystals there, there is no time to, oh no, it needs to go a centimeter left, right, front, back, whatever. So in such a situation, I integrate a field. Through intention, you can integrate almost any field, unless it's really out of whack or you have some really bad pieces into it, and it becomes rather tough and difficult. In all other situations, your intent can harmonize any field. Does that mean that is then the most optimal field that you could create with those pieces? Not necessarily. But sometimes it's not about the highest, sometimes it is about creating harmony. And the harmony will then stimulate you and everyone else who is there far more than that you bring it to the so-called most ideal situation and spend endless time on that one. On top of that, there I've seen also that opinions really differ a lot. So again, same advice, follow your heart and do integration, harmonize it with intent, and you have a good way to start working with it. There were the major things that were brought up, but there's one other subject, and I like to bring that in because I think it's very important, and that is the brain. And that has to do with the subject of information versus experience. In a sense, you can say what you're talking about is left and right brain. So when I give information, it is to feed the left hemisphere. And all the meditations and all the invitations to feel as to feed the right hemisphere. What I've seen with people is the tendency is, and that is true for most people, is you're either in this side or in that side. Yeah? So people flip-flop from one side to the next, left, right, left, right. It's not that easy for most people. Yes, there are definitely, of course, exceptions. But for most people, it's not easy to work with them at the same time. This is what we ultimately need to go to. So a lot of people wrestle with that because they have information, the course, and then they try to apply that, and then they go into the meditation and they try to feel things, and things are not seemingly working out. They cannot understand the information versus the experience because they don't experience it, or they experience something else, or they believe they experience something else. You know, all of that is possible. And that can be confusing. The main reason is twofold. One is that a lot of the brain frequencies are insufficiently developed. And meditation is one of the best ways to do that, although most meditations are mostly going into the lower frequencies and not so much into the higher frequencies of the brain. And you need both. We are not going into the details of that, but meditation definitely ultimately will help. But there is another aspect, and that is how can we let or support our left and right hemisphere to work together at the same time. In between those two halves, there is a kind of tissue that is called the corpus callosum, the bridge. And the problem is that the bridge is not always working. So what helps, and I know that there are some people who have followed the workshop where I did that meditation, at least I think so. I may have done it somewhere else in the US. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I did a meditation to help you to bridge the two hemispheres. And I like to do that with you so that, because it's recorded, it's something that you can always listen again to. And it is very helpful to begin not only to integrate the knowing and the feeling, but also it will help to have that at the same time. So that you can more easily, I'm not saying it will be easy, more easily, you can say, translate what is coming in as information into an understanding. Yeah, so that are the two aspects that are important. So that's why I like to do a meditation. And I know we are a little bit running out of time, so maybe we can add 5 minutes for some questions in case we need it. But I think this is an important meditation. So let's do that meditation. So if everybody is preparing themselves. So we are still quite connected, but I pulled you with my stories, of course, out of your heart into your mind. So take a few deeper inhalations and exhalations, sink back into your heart. Allow again the love and light to come into your system. And feel yourself settling into relaxation and a deeper connection with your spiritual essence and unconditional love. Never judge yourself for what you cannot do, because it's totally irrelevant. Just train if it feels from your heart the right thing to do, and otherwise let go. And know that your heart has a brain. Know that your guts has a brain. Those two brains feed the brain in your head, as do all our senses. The brain in the head is the one that needs to process and then give signals so that we know, speak, feel, act. So bring your awareness to the brain in your head. Always approach that brain with love. It simply is doing its job. It's no use to ever judge it. It's doing it exactly as it is told to do it, whether that's conscious or subconscious. So feel from this place of love for your brain. It's helping you every split second of your life to know and to do exactly what you in that moment need to do. And be aware that that brain basically is split in two halves, which we call the right and the left hemispheres. So let's first bring our awareness to the left hemisphere. That's the part that knows, translates, is logic. To the best of your ability, bring your awareness there and thank that part of your brain for all that it's giving you. And now bring your awareness to the right half, your right hemisphere, the one that's illogic, that feels, that knows beyond, that can see the whole instead of the parts. And feel gratitude for that brain and all that it gives you. Now in your imagination, see both halves and see that they are connected with a tissue. And it doesn't matter how big that tissue is, just be aware that there's tissue between the two that bridges those two halves. And you set now the intention that you activate the bridge in such a way that the communication between your two halves is going to the, for you, most optimal state possible. Trust that with this intention, it's actually really happening. So allow it now to unfold, knowing that you will function more optimally in the integration of your two hemispheres. And trust that you have stimulated the corpus callosum. And if you choose to do that more often, that you're on the way for the two hemispheres to work together in total harmony. Take again a deep breath. Bring your awareness back to the place where you're sitting and open your eyes again. Okay. Play with it. It's worth it. So let's see whether the left hemisphere has brought up some interesting questions or points for the remaining part of our Zoom meeting. Brother Gary, are you awake?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, but I'm too tranquil to think.
Don't let others do the thinking, you know.
So our dear friend from China asked the first question, and he said, just curious to ask Yap how often, and I'm assuming he means how often do you work with the crystalline grid? How often do you connect with it and do the work?
Well, the answer, in a sense, you can almost guess. You know, it's just following your heart. You know, when you look at your own system, your own grid system, if you do it a couple of times a week, it really builds up. Some people will do it every day. You know, realize that in order for you to really awaken your potential, daily meditation is very helpful. I'm not saying that's what you should do, but this will help you. So you can use that to combine working with crystals and activating the grid daily, or as often as you feel guided to do it. You know, there was a point a little while ago about how quickly is the energy disappearing. It doesn't go that quickly. Yeah. It is when you active, especially at the beginning, it can go a little bit faster. But when you really build up a field, it doesn't go that quick. It takes actually, let's say that you are able to create a field with 10 crystal skulls. And you go to, let's say, the first 3 levels. And then you go on a vacation for a month. Yes, it will be diminished, but it is just a matter of one meditation. You crank it up to the same level. But if you leave it alone for a year, yeah, then you have almost, you know, nothing actively left. Still, you build up quicker. Okay.
And well, Marianne had a follow-up with that. She thought the question was really, you mean clean and dust the grid?
Sorry, clean and dust the grid?
Yeah. Yeah, he meant cleaning.
Oh, okay. Clean the grid.
Yeah.
Ah, that's a subject for Jeannie. She always tells me that we need to clean the skulls and this and that. No, to clean the grid. When you activate and begin to create your field, and then you begin to activate the grid, the system is cleaning literally itself. It is your vibrations, your activations that allows it to clean. And with clean, I mean that those energies that are from the outside preventing it from being expressed or reducing it will literally be transformed. Nothing can hold back from pure intent, from the heart, nothing. Everything, as I said in one of the previous times, is consciousness. So if you direct consciousness and you do that with purity from the heart, things will follow. So your grids get cleaned, your also the basic grids, the Hartman, Banker, Curry grids get cleaned. And yes, that is because the environment is bringing it back in. Your environment is not so good. You know, if you do that in the beginning, especially daily, yeah, that will be very helpful. But if you can't do that, a couple of times a week. And the grids will get cleaner in your house or your direct environment, and it will expand depending on how often you do, and especially when you do that together with others. And I come back to that, together with others, then it goes much faster. You know, find people in your neighborhood to work with, and before you know, your town is pretty clear. And definitely the environment that you stay in. So initially, it is a lot of work. It's like swimming upstream, yeah. And that means that it can be even frustrating because the neighbors are still having all their other stuff and it affects you. But yeah, that is why it is so important to do that regularly, because the field will expand. Yeah. There's the doubt that you have yourself. It is also your personal environment. If you have more crystals, and in no way, I'm not a crystal seller, so I'm not stimulating the cells of crystal. But if you have some more crystals, of course, you create a more powerful field and it goes faster. But all of that is follow your heart. Yeah.
So
Did I answer the question?
I think there was more specificity looking for what you did with your own grid in your house, in your circle. How often you were doing that.
Oh, well, at a certain moment, the setup in your house and you are no longer separated. So that means that every meditation you do is like working on your grid. Yeah. So in that sense, I think, and especially when you do your meditation wherever you are in the house, not even sitting here, it is basically working on the grid. So in that sense, we work on it daily. Absolutely daily, many times, several times a day. It's not that you need to do that. It's simply the consequence of following your heart, following your excitement, working with what you're guided to work with. Yeah? One is not better than the other. It is what you feel is for you the most optimal way. We have, and of course we did here a lot of groups work as well. Yes, all of that is stimulating the formation of the field. And in the Harvey that we specifically worked from this place on the grids, yeah, that was with a group of people very intensely working on that. But if you are really serious about your development, you will do daily a meditation. And whether it's 5 or 10 minutes or half an hour or an hour, that's totally up to you. But do it every day and do it with a crystal. And with that, you're automatically working on your crystalline field. That's the best advice I can give.
So Maisie, I'd ask a question when you were talking about quartz and the different crystals. She asked about melted quartz. What about melted quartz?
Ouch.
How do you feel?
Yeah. I know. It's the same with, when I showed you this one. This is artificial created quartz. And that's why I have them in all the different basic classes of the different crystals. But there is nothing more powerful than the natural materials. We human beings can be so arrogant to think that we can improve it, can work with it. Well, I'm pretty blunt on that in my statements. Not possible. We are too limited. We can never beat the natural systems. And if we think that we can, I even dare to say that's arrogance. And we are better creators than Mother Earth, and that's what has been created through this super consciousness in the universe. No, we cannot even touch that. So melting it, we basically destroy a lot of the natural aspects. The same as when we radiate and be aware of that. So a lot of that very yellow small points that is sold as citrine, which is radiated amethyst. It's basically that material. Yeah, and it is sold as if it's one of the most wonderful things. And because citrine is so rare, there will be more on the market for that. And I'm sorry, it is not the way to go.
And then Cindy asked a question, are crystal skulls not made of quartz not as powerful or just different?
Different. You know, in one statement, every stone crystal has its own unique power that is way beyond our current understanding. When you activate any stone through the different frequency layers, you awaken qualities that you find in no book yet. So for those who work with crystals, I challenge you guys, write a new book because you have activated layers and understand better the different crystals, and write new books. There's a whole journey ahead for lifetimes.
So a question from Maya is, after that vacation or after you're away, do you have to work with all skulls individually, or is working with the field enough to reawaken the skulls?
That's not easy to answer. It depends a little bit on how well, and especially, I know some people don't like the terminology, but how well in the horizontal way each one has been activated. If you have a little one and you just go higher and higher and it's hardly activated, but you just reach it, you really have to do it individually again. But when you activated the field, you can say those crystal skulls or crystals that have been properly activated will go back almost immediately. It's those that just barely touched may need individual attention. And it's, as I said, it's a journey.
I'm not sure who asked this question. It's a phone number, but can we train the hemispheres of our brain so they automatically know which one should take the lead, be primary in a particular situation?
If your two hemispheres are in balance and you follow your heart, always the right hemisphere is doing the right thing at the right time.
And then that was good. And then from Johanny, thank you for the beautiful meditations and the answer to my and our questions. I have put some Shiva lingams in the vortex from Alpidorn. This is the left heart chamber of our country. And then Marianne asked, do you mean the crystal balls made from melted quartz? She was asking that to Maisa in terms of what melted crystal she was asking about.
Do I follow this?
Well, I think the question was, what do you mean by melted quartz?
Well, I can give at least some comment. They call it also reconstituted quartz. Quartz is heated up to a very high temperature, and then they basically, sometimes it's first they have this powder, and then they heat it up and then give it different forms. You see that with other materials as well. And when you do that, you miss the natural structures, and you don't get the same, the same tetrahedral structures, and it will never get the same power. It's not possible.
And this will be our last question from Vincent. What is the limitation of setting intent?
Your personal development. What I mean with that is, an intent is an intent. We set the intent with awareness, so we use the brain for that. But if it's okay, it is, coming from the heart, right? So it's the brain in the heart that gives the message to the brain in the head, and you set your intent. The problem with an intent is that the intent is connecting with the consciousness available at the moment you set the intent. Are you still following? So that consciousness is depending both on your awareness, your active awareness, and your subconsciousness. Since the subconsciousness is 90%, let me be nice, 90% of our total functioning, you may understand that even when we set an intent, there are a lot of other factors that play a role. But, you know, if you are holding back because you don't know what the 90% is, you will never do anything. So you learn through setting the intent, find out what the results are, what your experiences are, and that's why you need to develop your brain as much as possible so that you can understand better and then you can adjust. That's the normal, natural development. Yeah. So intent, yes, we set the intent to the best of our ability. We always do that in that way. But do not expect that all your intents will, let's say, be realized for 100%. If that's the case, I bow to you.
And with that, we're going to close our meeting for today. And once again, just share with everybody how grateful we are that you made this conscious choice to take this step and become a member of the Crystalline movement. And we're going to invite you all to unmute yourself and add your voice to your goodbyes. Goodbye to everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
I love this moment.
Thank
you all for a wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Next week.
Wonderful.
Hi, Maritza.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye everyone.
Love, love, love.